Almighty God, we come together this evening in the service of your church to remember with thanksgiving all that you have been able to do through us in this parish during the past year, and to seek your guidance in the elections for the coming year. We pray that this may be something more than just a business meeting, but rather an occasion when we receive fresh encouragement in our work, catch a wider vision of your purpose, and dedicate ourselves anew to your service. We ask this in the name of him who came to this world not to be served, but to serve, and gave his life as a ransom for many, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Well, a very warm welcome to you all. Lovely to see so many people here. You're in for a treat with the catering at the end. And welcome to anybody who's watching via live stream. So let's, without any further delay, continue with the meeting. We want to appoint a secretary for the meeting. And so, would someone like to propose? First of all, perhaps even if it's just a few of you here who don't know this, there's this rather quaint initial meeting which is called the vestry meeting. And it doesn't last very long. I'll tell you when it's over. And anybody who's resident in the parish, even if they don't worship here and even if they're not on the electoral roll, can vote for this bit. It's when we come to the main annual general meeting that you can only vote if you're on the electoral roll. So there we go. So this is the vestry meeting. So could somebody propose that? Thank you, Paul Harron, seconded by Pat Cox. All in favour? And anyone against? Wonderful, Elaine. There we go. Elaine, apologies for absence.
I've got a list of apologies here. I don't know if you want to read them.
I don't think I'm going to read them all out, but we will note those. And have we had any other business? No. Okay, so straight on to the election of church wardens. The following have been, so Paddy Collins has been proposed by Jerry Causa and seconded by Sandra Stevens. And Sarah North has been proposed by Mary Williams and seconded by Sophie Rudolph. All in favour? Or anyone against? Fantastic. Thank you. Wonderful. That concludes the vestry meeting. If only all meetings were that swift. So on to the annual parochial church meeting. Would someone who was here last year and has read the minutes like to propose that we accept these minutes as a true and accurate record of that meeting? Proposed by Pauline Stanton-Saringer and seconded by, I feel like an auctioneer here, Ron Thompson. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Wonderful. Thank you very much. I just need to sign this now. Is it the fourth or the third? There we go. Right. So I don't think there are any matters arising that won't be covered later on, but if anyone wants to raise an issue now's your time. No, that's fine. So over to Jill Stops, who, because the annual general meeting is unusually early, Jill is actually here, as opposed to being in the Isle of Man looking after grandchildren. So Jill, are you going to come up and do that bit for us, please? The lectern microphone is on.
This is the fourth revision year of the roll, which was begun in 2013. There'll be just one more revision year before we have to start all over again, as the roll is completely renewed every 6 years. At last year's annual meeting, we had a total of 226 names on the roll, and during the course of the year, 10 names were added and 3 names removed. At this revision, 39 names have been added and 8 removed, giving a current total of 264, of which 79 are non-resident in this ecclesiastical parish. That's all there is to it, really.
Would somebody like to propose that we accept that? Anne Exelby, and seconded by Judith Bundock. All in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Thank you very much. Wonderful. So, without further ado, the Finance and Stewardship Report. And so I'm going to hand over to our wonderful treasurer, Mike Evans, who's been slaving away over spreadsheets and pie charts, and he still can't understand the numbers well.
Right, good evening, everybody. I'll start by taking you through the financial statements. Has everyone got sight of a copy of the financial statements that wants a copy of them? Because not everybody does, funny enough. Okay, basically we're talking about the back of the annual report from page 17 to the end. And I must emphasise that we're going back in time here as they cover the calendar year 2016 and show the financial position at the end of December 2016. They start with my Treasurer's report on page 17, followed by the Independent Examiner's report on page 18, in which they confirm that no adverse matters have come to their attention. Next comes the Statement of Financial Activities, otherwise known as the SOFA, on page 19. And this report sets out to analyse our income and expenditure using headings prescribed by the Charities Act 2011. These are explained in the notes on page 20. Hopefully the page numbers are still tying up. The balance sheet on page 21 sets out the assets and liabilities that represent our total funds. The assets are made up of a curate's house, various investments and bank balances. On pages 22 and 23, there's an analysis of the income and expenditure for all our funds, indicating whether or not they are completely restricted, i.e. the general fund, where the church's everyday income and expenditure is allocated, designated funds, where money has been set aside by the PCC for a specific purpose, or restricted funds which have to be spent in ways laid out by the original donors. The fund analysis totals agree back to the SOFA on page 19. The SETI. The Statement of Financial Affairs. I did that joke much better last year. It went a lot better. Never mind. Sorry. The different funds are explained in the additional notes on pages 24 to 26. Right, have you got that? I've explained the geography of the financial statements, so hopefully I can now get on with the main points of my presentation. So if we're going to have the next slide up, please. Thank you. So the 2016 financial highlights. Total incoming resources, which is the money coming in, have reduced due to a legacy received in 2015 of 112,000. So this year they were 293,300. Last year they were 113,300 higher than that. Similarly, resources used, i.e. money coming out, is 350,000, which is 154,000 down on last year. The net movement of funds is £36,000, £36,600 excess of expenditure over income, i.e. we spent more than we got in, which is down it was 61,000 better off than last year. The reason the expenditure is down so much is the fact that last year, again, it was due to exceptionally high spend on projects in 2015. Next slide. Looking at the general fund only, where most of our everyday income and expenditure goes, there was a small surplus during the year of I think it's about £1,200, which has pushed the general fund balance up to about £48,000. So it's in reasonable shape, but watch this space. There's more on that later. Cash balances total 190,000, down from 257,000 the year before, and total funds are 530,800, down by 67, down by £37,000, obviously, of which unrestricted funds are just under £150,000. So you see, although the church seems to have an awful lot of money, over £530,000, the unrestricted funds only come to £150,000. The rest of them are all restricted, set aside for specific purposes. At this point, I'd like to publicly thank Pam Fox, who does a sterling job paying all the bills and maintaining the accounts during the year, and Judith Bundock, our stewardship coordinator, who also pulled together the annual report and financial statements that you're looking at now. We could have the next slide. So, where did the money come from in last year? Totals just over £293,000, as I said earlier, and just under 241,000 came from you guys, well, you guys and the tax man, which is 82% of our income. So that's regular planned giving. Income from ancillary trading is mainly wedding fees and fees for the use of the church and now the centre down in town, and that accounts for a further 7% of our income. So where did the money go? Our expenditure totaled just under £350,000. Staff team costs have become the single highest item of expenditure in the church accounts at nearly £84,600, which is about 24% of our total costs. This follows on from the incredible growth in activities that they are leading. The parish share, which is the next largest item, is a regular amount that is paid to the diocese to pay for Will and Danny's stipends and pensions and for the rectory. Building maintenance costs include £20,000 for the work on the curate's house following the change in curate. Basically, the rugs trashed the place. No, they didn't, sorry. No. Strike that from the minutes, please. I just couldn't resist it. No, obviously there was some work that was needed to improve the place and upgrade a lot of the facilities. But the curate's house is, and all the costs relating to the curate are funded by a separate fund we're very fortunate to have had use of for many years. Other projects include the new automatic doors, refurbishment and upgrading of the kitchen facilities, or completion of that refurbishment, and completion of the works on the ringing chamber. Then you've got the organ project, about another £19,000 was spent on that. And charitable giving, another £10,000 on top of that. They're the main items of expenditure you see there. So, if we move on to the next slide, please. This is where our money is going to go in 2017. In 2017, we're expecting to spend £335,500, which is slightly less than last year by about £14,000. You'll see, however, that the proportion of our total expenditure spent on staff costs has risen from 24% to 36% at £120,600. It should also be noted as well that as well as the rising costs, there's been a funding set aside for some years ago for children and young people's work that will be used up during this year. Also, the PCC a while ago agreed that the funding be set aside to cover the costs of our contemporary worship leader and the rector's PA. Again, this use of funding will cease in 2017. The funding will then have to come from the general fund on top of our existing everyday expenses. Other projects include an upgrade to the church lighting in the nave, completion of the work to be carried out on the upgrade of the kitchen, and a new church notice board for outside. So how are we going to pay for it, I suppose, is the next question. This is where we think our money is going to come from, so at the moment in 2017. We're budgeting income of £273,100, with 86%, or just over 234,000 of this coming from planned giving and tax rebates. The trouble is, we're a successful and ambitious church, and we need to spend £335,500 to fulfil our plans to continue God's work here in Buckingham. That is a shortfall of £62,400. The budget does not include anything for the Director of Operations post, the need for which was outlined in the Vision Sunday at the end of January. I think it's fair to say that not everyone had captured this vision, captured the vision behind this role, hence the disappointing response. But nevertheless, the PCC, at its last meeting in March, has given the go-ahead for the appointment of a half-time, slimmed-down version of this role. We can probably find enough money from the existing budget to cover this role from September. Similarly, the continued success of our children and young people's work has created the need for a part-time children's worker role. Ideally, we would like this role to start again in September. But both appointments are subject to being funds being made available. So basically, if we can't raise any more money, they won't take place. The annual cost of this role is about £10,500. So for 2017, the cost is just over £3,500, increasing the shortfall to just under £66,000. So how can we sustainably fund this shortfall? Well, we could, I suppose, use some of the brought forward unrestricted reserves worth just under £150,000. Yes, we could, but a lot of these funds are already committed elsewhere. And then, of course, what about next year? Many of these costs are ongoing, so using up the general fund is not a good idea. You understand that the upkeep of the building like this, which is so heavily used, does not come cheap, and maintenance costs are very difficult to predict. If we could have the last slide up, please. I say last just to give you hope. So our giving and or fundraising are going to have to increase. Let me leave this idea with you. Now, I know that not all of us are in paid employment at the moment, whether you're a student, looking for work, taking a career break, or drawing a pension. But most of us are in paid employment, earning at least the minimum wage, and some of us significantly more. Some of us are already giving at a high level, and have for many years, and some of you have already responded to our 2 Vision Sundays, for which we thank you. But if you take the minimum wage hourly rate, which has just gone up to £7.50 an hour, and assume a 35-hour week per week job, that's an annual salary of £13,650. Now, assuming a 10% Christian giving rate, or tithing if you like, that's £1,365 to the church. I had a chat with Will and we mulled around the numbers. We reckon about 170 adults worship in church on a Sunday. I personally think it's a bit of a conservative estimate, but 170 adults, just for the sake of argument. 170 adults and 1,000 times by £1,365 is £232,050 before gift aid. Now, our conversion rate for tax-efficient giving is pretty good. So basically, those who gift aid their donations amount to about 95% of our planned giving. So the taxman could add, say, about, another £55,000. So that gives a total planned giving of £287,050. The key thing here is that we're giving sacrificially. We should notice the difference. Lots of people are giving their time, but in order for the church to carry on its good works, and we're not after gold candlesticks, we need your money. There is a biblical principle that 10% of our income should go to the Lord, the tithe. Now, how you work out the 10% is between you and God, but whether or not it's pre or post-tax, after the mortgage repayments or after the utility bills, we need to work out what sacrificial giving means for us. This is so that we can continue as a church building God's kingdom here in Buckingham. In this example, our planned giving will increase by over £46,000 compared to what it was in 2016. That is already a big hole in the shortfall. But how many of us are earning just the minimum wage? I just leave that as a thought for you. I've got hopefully a few minutes, Danny. Anybody got any questions for me?
We'll have Q&A at the end, obviously, but if you've got any particular questions for Mike, now would be a good time. If you just raise your hand, Danny will.
Why do you anticipate another £13,000 for the organ after we had a major refurbishment last year?
Do you want to take? Basically, we've still got a balance that needs to be paid, but there are still issues. There are still some niggles that need sorting out. So we have withheld on advice. We've taken advice on this.
I can clarify that. This isn't actually an additional £13,000.
It's not additional. It's the same.
This is £13,000 that we have withheld from paying.
Sorry, yeah, exactly. It should have been paid this year. You're absolutely right, Ron. It should have been paid, but because of the remedial work that still need to be carried out, there's still some money to be paid on that. Okay? Anybody else?
You've successfully anaesthetised the congregation, Mike.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, just a blunt. I've just felt it is very good to have a vision, and then also I'm just worried about Will's face. Well, obviously we need money to do things. I understand, and then of course we all try to give as much as we can. At the same time, well, say my life, if I haven't got money, I can't do everything I want to do as well, isn't it? Well, bank wouldn't give me loan, overdraft, and if you haven't got enough money or if you can't raise enough money, then because we are advertising for a new paid position, at the same time, we are always saying we haven't got enough money, we need to raise the giving. I always wonder, vision is great. I agree with the vision, it's very good. At the same time, what's the reality? And the balance, where is the balance?
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, Ria, and sure, long term, at the end of the day, if we can't afford, if people, we will have to adjust our vision accordingly. But I suppose we're trying to step out in faith and put forward a vision. We're not here spending money for the sake of it. We go through this. I make sure everybody goes through it with a fine-tooth comb, and that we only budget for what we really do need to do. But ultimately, yes, you're absolutely right, Ria. If the money's not there, we can't do some of the things we want to do. We should be ashamed, but yeah.
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. But obviously there's a limit, isn't it? You can't just dig into something you haven't got.
Hopefully, by me gradually cajoling people and gently cajoling people, hopefully gradually our income will be able to stretch. Any other questions?
I guess that part of the problem we've got is if you set up a business, you have to invest money in production and marketing before you start getting the revenue in from sales. And although obviously we're not a business, we have to create the capacity to cater for more people coming in. It's no use us being reactive the whole time, because if, for example, a family comes in here and our children's work is shoddy and the loos aren't working and there's far too many children up in the rooms upstairs, it's obvious that they're just not going to return. So we have to keep ahead of the game. And that's what we call stepping out in faith.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we, in particularly with the children's work and young people's work, we've been so successful in that it would just be an absolute crying shame to put the brakes on that.
Okay, if you do think of another question, obviously there is Q&A at the end.
Will, there's one fairly important, two fairly important things we need to do. Oh, you
go
please.
for it. So we need to vote on the presentation of the annual report and accounts, and also the appointment of the auditor. So, would someone like to propose that we accept the annual report and accounts? Thank you, Harry. Seconded by Paul Harns. All in favour? Harry Morton. And anyone against? And would someone like to propose? Paul Harns. And the appointment of the auditor for 2017 is same people?
It's the same people, Hills Burgess.
Hills Burgess.
In Leighton Buzzard.
Would someone like to... You're obviously happy with the service they're providing, Mike?
Excellent.
Yeah, excellent.
Incredibly
Is that
cheap
Donna?
as well.
Donna Mills. And seconded by Daphne, right at the back. I can still just about see the back row. All in favour? Thank you very much. And anyone against? Wonderful. Okay, well, the tempo is going to change slightly now. And I want to welcome Emma to come and give us a feel for what's been going on in the children and young people's area.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Can't hear me. That's a good start. Hello. It's nice to be here. I'm really excited to share with you some of the things that have been going on in my area, which is youth and children. I have written a report which you can read, but I thought I would share with you some different things today, just so you don't have to read the same thing twice. So to make it nice and simple, I've split it into 3 categories: my wins, my challenges, and my needs. So to start with, some of my wins have been BPC kids groups. They are our Sunday morning kids groups. I don't know if many of you guys here come to the 9:30 service, but if you do, you will see lots of kids. We have basically doubled in size. Since I've been here, I joined as the kids worker in January, and now we are seeing about 40 to 50 children coming upstairs to our groups, plus lots of little ones that stay downstairs. So that's been really exciting. God has been continuing to bless that ministry so much. Obviously, we've rebranded it. Some of you might know that it used to be called Jammers. We've now called it BPC Kids, and that seemed to go really well. And we've also, to cope with the growth, we've had to introduce another group, which is called Stepping Stones. And again, that's gone really well. So, like I said, we're constantly welcoming new people, new children and families to the 9:30 service. For me, I think a big win is when I say to them, why are you here? How did you hear about us? And they respond and they say, I heard that the kids' work was really good and we wanted to try it out. I think that's great because it shows that we're getting a reputation in town, so that's awesome. And also, again, to cope with the growth, we've had to grow in terms of adults and in terms of our BPC Kids team. So we now have over 30 people on our team, which is amazing, although we could still do with a few more. So if anyone's interested, come and speak to me. But that's amazing. Again, we've had to change the way we kind of do that team in terms of planning. So we are hopefully going to have team nights. The plan is that we will meet 3 times a year as a big team. We'll have dinner together, we'll dream together, we'll review and pray, and hopefully we can just bless all the team. And then we will then have a smaller team, which I've called the theme team, who will meet on a regular basis to plan. Well, we're already doing it. We're planning and we're just looking at themes together and really praying for our group. So that's really cool. Just before I move on to youth, another highlight of mine with the children is a few weeks ago, I wasn't feeling very well, and the young people said, can we pray for you? And they laid their hands and they prayed, just like I've been teaching them, or the team have been teaching them, and it was awesome to see them stepping out in their faith and just doing what we've been talking about. So, moving on to youth. Our youth groups have been growing as well. We are now seeing about 30 to 40 young people each week, which is amazing. So a few wins again. So the Way was at the 9:30 service, but last year we moved it to the 6 p.m. And that's been really cool. We're seeing up to 15 young people, which is more than it was at the 9:30. So that's really good. And they also did a youth takeover service recently, which is really cool. Some of you might have seen that. And also, our other youth group, Blaze, did a pancake party a couple of months ago, and we had over 100 people in the church who I didn't recognize many of them, so most of them don't come to church normally, and the youth group planned that themselves, so that was an awesome opportunity. And again, to cope with the growth, our youth team, when I joined as a youth worker back in June, there was 3 people on the team, and it's grown to 10. And again, we still do need more, but that is amazing, and it's awesome to celebrate that. But just to be a little bit different, I thought some of you guys, you don't really come to youth groups. You're not really with us during the week. So I thought I would put together a video with the young people, and I'd like to show you what we get up to.
And then we'll go into groups and talk about God. And there's craft, tuck shop, there's table tennis and football, and it's just a lot of fun, and you get to know lots of people.
My favourite about Blaze is I like going on a trip. We recently went to a laser tag place, which was fun.
Soul Survivor, which is a live youth service, which is basically a big talk, and we get to worship, and it's really fun and really great and powerful.
Free time, then we go to have a talk, then we have discussion groups.
My favourite thing about Fuel is listening to the leaders' talks and their stories about their life and spending time with God and learning about God.
It's an opportunity to have questions about our faith and general life answers.
I've learned more about God and like that I got a lot closer to God than I was before coming to this group.
More about God's eternal love for us all. And another thing I've learned is that there's lots of people around me going through the same things that I'm going through, and God's always by my side.
Learn that God is always there for you no matter what, and He will forgive you no matter what.
More than you. I never knew I loved.
Awesome. Cool. So hopefully that just gives you an idea of what we get up to in the week. So moving on to my challenges. Obviously, with the growth of the children on a Sunday morning, we are literally running out of space. I do actually get nervous that everybody's going to turn up on a Sunday because we wouldn't be able to cater for everybody. So that's an awesome challenge to have, but it is still a challenge, and we are in conversation with the university and a couple of other people to see if we can get some use of other rooms. So please do be praying for that, because it's exciting, but it's also a bit of a challenge. Another thing that's been a bit of a challenge is we launched a new youth group called Fuel in September, which is for 14 to 18-year-olds. Basically, we had a couple of two kind of different types of young people. We had young people that had grown up in church with Christian families their whole life, and then we had young people that had come up through Blaze, which you saw on the video, and we kind of had to gel them together, and it was just a bit of a mission, and it's taken quite a while, but we've been seeing results over the last, I say since Christmas. They seem to finally be gelling and actually like becoming quite good friends. Again, if you could continue to pray for that, that would be awesome. We are actually going to be doing Youth Alpha with them in September as well, which is really exciting. Another challenge is, and the last challenge, is mentoring. So as I've been enrolled now as a youth worker since June, young people have started to really trust me, which is kind of the aim, and they've been opening up to me. And young people are currently facing some massive, massive things. We've got young people who are struggling with things like mental health, so we've got depression, anxiety. Young people are self-harming. 1 in 4 people at the moment, young people, are self-harming. That is the statistics. So we've got young people who struggle with that. We've got young people coming from broken families, young people with learning difficulties. We're supporting some young carers, and young people who don't have enough food at home. So at Blaze this year, we decided to put toast and hot chocolate on every week because we realized that there were kids coming who weren't having dinners at home, proper meals at home. So it's pretty amazing, but as young people are opening up to me, of course, I then want to support them, and sometimes that means meeting with them one-to-one and really investing in them, but I just don't have the time. I simply don't have the time. And more young people are really starting to trust me and share, and so I'm just praying that we can get something sorted so that I can really be there for them, and so can our youth team. So that's the challenges, and finally moving on to needs. Kind of picked up on it already, but I think my main need is time. Although I'm full-time, I'm essentially a part-time youth worker and a part-time kids worker. And I think with everything we've got going on, we really could have 2 full-time positions if we had the money in an ideal world. And the PCC have been amazing. I've shared everything with them, and they, like you heard, hopefully we're going to get something in place, maybe a training kids worker for September, and that would be an awesome start. But if we do continue to grow as we have been, I do believe that we're going to need more help. Again, the teams would I'd love more people to join the team, so if you are interested or know of anyone that might like to join, please do come and chat to me. I think because of my lack of time, I'm just not having time, like I said, to meet with young people, which is so important, but also to meet with the adults that are on my teams. Although the teams have grown, I've hardly had any chances to go for coffees and get to know them. So that is a massive need. And yeah, I think just to finish, hopefully there'll be a slide, I just wanted to share with you a few things that I'd really like to see us looking into if we can get all the support we need for this ministry area. So I'd really love to start building some connections and a relationship with the local secondary schools, because currently I don't have any involvement with those, and I think that's really important. And I'd love to invest in a primary school. We do assemblies, but I'd love to really invest in one primary school, maybe get some teacher assisting going in and just sort of, I don't know, building on that connection. I'd love to do a drop-in cafe, a youth one. I think that'd be awesome, possibly using the centre. And a weekly kids group. Literally, when parents join and they come to the 9:30 for the first time, normally their first question is, do you have anything for my children during the week? And I just have to be like, no, we just have Sundays. So I'd love to be able to offer something in the week. And then a mentoring scheme. I would love to be able to train up people to mentor young people and children. I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, well, again, we'll be doing questions at the end. Amanda, who is our families worker, she couldn't be here this evening, but she's also made some videos about Arkham Messy Church.
Thank you. Wonderful. Great. Well, I think that those constitute the reports for those, so we'll just note those reports. And on behalf of us all, thank you very much to Emma and her amazing team of volunteers, and Amanda and her incredible team of volunteers for all you do. I suspect to a lot of people here, a lot of this work is largely unseen. You might say, thank goodness it's unseen. But it's absolutely crucial work, because what these guys are doing is they're raising up the next generation for us to hand the baton onto. And if we don't have anybody to hand the baton onto, the church dies. So this is our future and is terribly important. Okay, so we've got the other reports, and I know we've got a separate item for mission and outreach, but actually their reports are in here. So all I was going to suggest, first of all, I just want to thank Jill and the office team for putting together this report booklet, but I just suggest we note that. Do please take these home or download them from the internet. Read through to understand the amazing breadth and width and depth of what goes on in this church that you guys enable to take place. And there may be things in here that you'd like to get involved with. Their contact detail, the names of those responsible are in there. And of course, you can pray for these activities as well. So that's item 7 and 8 done. So item 9, we're on to the elections and appointments. And only those on the electoral roll may vote. So election of deputy wardens, we have 2. 4 in effect. Yeah, okay, well, that's 4. So, but do they have nomination papers and all that sort of stuff? No. Okay, so just to let you know, Paul Harens, Pam Fox, David Squibb, and Bob LeGrove do a magnificent job as deputy wardens. It's not like a legal position, but they are incredibly helpful keeping the show on the road. So thank you to those 4 for keeping going. And I see Warren and Joe nodding. Are you, is that a me too? No, they're keeping very still now. No, don't worry. So thank you to those 4. Right, so election of PCC members.
We've got 5 nominees.
So we have 5 nominees.
And they've all been proposed and seconded.
They've all been proposed and seconded. So shall I read who they are? So Matt Killick, who was actually co-opted onto the PCC this time last year, so he's served on that. So he's coming on board, hopefully properly. Michael Lee, ditto. Mike Roskell, great to, I think Mike will be our youngest PCC member. I won't embarrass him and ask his age, but he's definitely in his 20s. Sarah Dumbleton. Now, Sarah, I know you're here. Sarah is a neighbour of mine in Eris Way, and Sarah's been coming to Messy Church and the 9:30, and she is going to take over from Elaine. And last but not least, Jeremy Grinier is standing for re-election. So I don't need to read out who proposed and seconded them all, do I? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's wonderful. Okay, so all in favour? Thank you, wonderful. Anyone against any of those nominations? Well done, you 5. Thank you very, very much indeed. And don't worry, Judith, I haven't proposed or seconded anybody. Which is my massive mistake I made. Was it last year or the year before? Year before. I will not forget that in a hurry. Right, so election of Deanery Synod representatives. We have 2 people, and that's Ruth Newell and Donna Mills. Yes. And they've both been proposed and seconded, so all in favour? Anyone against? Thank you both. Right, and appointment of sides persons for the coming year. I'm going to need to read this, the Hall of Fame, the Sides People's Hall of Fame. Pam Fox, Anna Kavanagh. Anna was the person carrying that little baby, which was very dear in the video. Pat Cox, Jane Foster, Robert Cummings, Sue Watkins, Geraldine Collins, Sue Mantle, Elaine Causa, Kathy Robbins, Angelina Chilver, Anne Exelby, Brian Akehurst, Margaret Akehurst, Audrey Hurst, Warren White, Beverly Stockill, Liz Mayston, Derek Lohman, Rodney Blackall, Mary Mellowish, and Ron Thompson. And they are proposed by Jerry Causa and seconded by, is that Daphne again? I wasn't sure which person your arm belonged to. Seconded by Daphne. Wonderful. All in favour? Great. And anyone against? Thank you. And thank you to those people who really helped the 11 a.m. service proceed smoothly. So, Warden's presentation, please. So, Paddy and Sarah, and I'm going to follow on with my little presentation after you.
Yeah, it would be very brief. Everything that Sarah and I do is really just to make sure that everything else happens. So we just facilitate in that sense. As wardens, we've got two main responsibilities, I suppose. One is the building, and the other is to make sure the vicar turns up on a Sunday. Well, luckily, I'm helped both of those matters. Donna Mills has done a wonderful job as chief of the fabric committee, and she's very good laying the tarmac when you've got holes outside. All credit to her. And I'm very grateful to all the non-stipendiary clergy who have turned up to fill the gaps when Will and Danny can't be here. That's essentially it from me. Thank you. Yeah, I have some gift vouchers for those clergy and licensed lay ministers that have helped me, so I'll do that after the service, after the meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, you two. And my huge thanks to Paddy and Sarah as well for everything they do. It's a great team effort. Okay, so I'm going to embarrass two people now. The first one is Joe McMorrow. Joe, please come up here. Joe was the editor of The Spire up until the end of 2016, and The Spire has been laid down, hasn't it? And come here, Joe. Yeah, so how's it been for you? How many years were you editor?
I was asked to take it on while they found someone else. That was about 7 years ago, I think. So 7 fab years. I think I sort of dried up towards the end, trying to think of things to write and say. There are contributions, obviously, from the regulars, and a change in my work circumstances mean I'm in London a lot, so the time just wasn't there. But it's great fun, and I recommend any budding writers out there, any J.K. Rowlings who want to have a crack at it, please, do. It's good fun.
Fantastic. And just to be clear, I'm just waiting for somebody to join the church who has the necessary time and the necessary skill set, and I'd be delighted to resurrect it. So we didn't allow it to die because we didn't like it. It's just simply we didn't have the volunteers. But Joe, on behalf of us all, a small token of our appreciation.
Very much.
And thank you very much. Jerry Causa, you're under starter's orders, by the way. Are you? Where's Jerry? Jerry Causa was here like 10 seconds ago. Elaine, where is your husband? Okay, Danny, you're going to have to stand in. Jerry. Right, report to the top of the aisle there. All will become clear in a moment. As he's making his way there, I just wanted to say, Joe was, of course, admirably supported by Rodney Blackall and also Bill and Ann Mercer. So that was a team effort. So Elaine is standing down. Elaine, come over here. Elaine has been one of the important ladies in my life as the PCC secretary. And you've done 2 5-year tours of duty.
I have, yes.
I could call them terms of office, but I think it's more like a tour of duty, isn't it? So now I did hear, a little bird told me that it's your wedding anniversary today.
It is. What a way to celebrate.
And I also hear that your husband failed to get you any flowers. At least he ordered them, but they weren't delivered. So I'm going to help Jerry out here, and he's going to get a 2-for-1 deal. So Jerry can give his wife my flowers, your flowers, and pretend they're his wedding anniversary flowers.
In my defence, I was trying to do the size person's rota.
Elaine, thank you so much. We're very, very grateful to you. We are well ahead of time. I promise it has nothing to do with the samosas and salmon vol au vent that await, okay? It's now, I think, my turn. And I'm just going to speak in two parts, really. I'm just going to have a quick look back at some of the highlights of the year and then to have a look forward. And 2016 was another year of positives with lots and lots of growth. And with the continued growth, Lucia and I have hosted, we've had to give up on the congregational suppers. I do apologize. I can't remember where in the alphabet we got to, but the congregational suppers, we started at A and we were working our way through. They ground to a halt because we had to focus on welcome suppers. And we're now having welcome suppers every 2 or 3 weeks as a way of getting to know new members of the church. It's a really effective way of doing that. And whilst some of you may look back on 2016 as a time of kind of endless change, there were some changes, but actually I think it probably was a year of consolidation. I know it didn't always feel like that. And if I had to choose my high points for 2016, I guess in no particular order, there'd be the Easter Alive service. Because of the growing staff team, particularly because of Tim King's input, we really made Easter a massive event. We poured out lots of time and effort into the Easter services, and they were fantastic. We then held the VVIP party. Does anyone remember that? We're doing it again this year, just to thank all the many volunteers. That was an amazing day. Mandy Hagan organized a Women's Day. I wasn't there, but I heard it was very successful. And then there was the confirmation service in November with Archbishop George Carey. The champagne moments of that was when Stephen Tayfield caused a mini tsunami. And so we had the Archbishop of Canterbury here with Susan Milam with her mop cleaning up the water down here. And then the other wonderful thing was the dog fight at the back during the service. And it could only happen in an Anglican church. But that was fantastic. The other thing was the level of hospitality that we've been able to share with people, primarily through things like the marriage course and the Alpha course, which have been crewed by Lizzie Ogden, Chris Armstrong, and Angelina Chilvers. It has been nothing short of amazing, just the standard of food, and you're going to get a taste of it in a moment. And I think it has spoken volumes to outsiders about the love of Jesus Christ, the hospitality that the church has. Nobody is going to be interested in an institution that doesn't bother to really serve visitors really well. And so that's been a massive high point for me. And the final thing, I guess, is the way the centre has been engaging with the local community. But there's much else. I think our services have continued to improve. The 9:30 service sees new families every week. And as Emma has said, if everyone was to attend on a Sunday, we certainly wouldn't have room. The 11 a.m. continues strong, hovers around the 80-90 mark, and copes with the noise and the mess that they arrive to. And I'm very grateful to the 11 a.m. congregation that I haven't had a complaint for actually quite a long time about that. But I do appreciate that the 11 a.m. congregation have been used to arriving in peace and quiet, to hear the choir rehearsing, and actually they arrived to nothing short of sort of World War III breaking out, food being thrown around, children running around, and I just want to thank you for the grace and forbearance that you have shown. Messy Church has grown. There was a slight dip, and Amanda, I remember, was getting very worried about it, and we said, listen, these things happen. Just Stay in there, hang on in there, and now the numbers of Messy Church are increasing. And Messy Church, like Ark, are a vital stepping stone for people to get into one of the mainline services. Some people will stay at Messy Church. For them, that is their church. But for many, it's a stepping stone where it's very friendly, very accessible. There's no liturgy. You don't have to learn special songs or anything like that. And the children have a great time. The 6 o'clock service has become intentionally more charismatic. And I know that hasn't pleased everybody, but the figures speak for themselves, and we're now hitting 150 people. Last Easter, at the Easter Live service, we had 250 people at that service. And the quality now is really quite outstanding. What Tim has done with the band has taken us on, it's getting out of a Mini, and we're now kind of driving around in a Lamborghini. I mean, it really is a step change in the quality of what we're doing. Lots of people now watch that service online via the live stream as well. In 2016, the organ project basically pretty much came to an end just in time for Easter. Just so you know, the company that did that has gone bust very sadly, and there's still about £10,000 worth of work outstanding on it. If you're a complete organ freak, you'd be able to hear things that aren't right. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's sounding pretty good. And so poor old Ray, who has done the most incredible job keeping this project going. The end is in sight. We're withholding the money from the administrators, and we're going to pay it to another company to come in just to finish off all the final whistle and bells. The soup service is another success story. Has anybody not been to the soup service? It's now called the community lunch. Yeah, well, Harry, I mean, anyone who's in full-time work will find it difficult. But if you're ever around on a Tuesday, do come. It's a free meal, starter, main course, and pudding, tea and coffee. It's a free meal, and it runs at a profit. Only in God's kingdom can that happen. So that's amazing. Alpha in September was a huge success story. We had the biggest course we've ever had running here. Last year, we also said farewell to the rugs. Unless anyone is thinking that Mike perhaps wasn't joking fully, they did not trash the curate's house. The curate's house needed a lot of TLC, and we decided to really bless the new curate, Danny and Ali, and just grasp the nettle. And we spent a lot of money clearing up all the damp, putting extra insulation, all these things that actually the rugs had very stoically put up with for the time they were there. And of course, we said goodbye to Chloe Painter, who's, by the way, settled in really well as the youth worker in Farnborough. We've also been able to appoint 3 new members of staff. So, well, Emma King was already a member of staff, but she transitioned to full-time from part-time. Emma is, of course, Tim King's wife. And we found a church caretaker. Stephen Tayfield started in that role, and we ended the year with Ollie Holland doing it as a volunteer, doing the church bit, and Stephen Smith acting as a centre manager in a paid role. And I can't tell you the difference that has made. We couldn't run the centre. Am I right, Keith? We couldn't run the centre without Stephen Smith being down there to handle all the bookings and do all sorts of stuff down there. And likewise, Ollie is an absolute stalwart. You can't miss him. Big chap, big beard, always got a smile on his face, and he really helps the staff team. He's in here first thing on a Sunday morning, helping Emma set up the children's groups, helps us midweek rearrange all these chairs. So he's been a real superstar as well. We have 2 ordinands. I was going to say 1 ordinand, but as of today, we now have 2 ordinands because Steve Hallett, are you here? No? Yeah, he's there at the back. He just passed his bishop's advisory panel. So Steve will be going off for training. Don't quite know what shape that's going to be, but hopefully we won't be saying goodbye to him. So 2 ordinands, the other being Amanda Marshall, and 2, possibly 3 others exploring their vocations in full-time Christian ministry. And I think that speaks volumes that we've now got 5 people going forward for training, because in the next 10 years, 40% of Anglican clergy are going to retire. And that's going to leave a massive hole. So we really need to be playing our part in guiding people towards vocations in the church. The marriage course is now run annually, and that's been a fantastic thing. Mike and Alexandra Lee have run that, again, with an amazing kitchen team, and amazing feedback from that, with people saying how their marriages have been enriched. And with all the pressures on people's marriages, I continue to consider that to be a very, very important course for people who are married to do, to stand guard over their marriages. We ran a bereavement course, and sadly the divorce and separation recovery course didn't get enough people signed up. I was really surprised about that, but we laid a fleece and we didn't get the right take-up, so perhaps it wasn't God's timing. The Connect groups continue to flourish under Michael Gregg's leadership, and it's fantastic that we have so many people in Connect groups. They are doing an amazing job looking after not just each other and walking alongside, journeying alongside one another, but also an increasing number of Connect groups are looking outside their groups and doing acts of service out in the community. Hopefully you'll know who Emma Cottrell is. She's a mission partner working out in Israel. And of course we said goodbye to the Cortmans off to Peru as well last September, and they're doing really well out there. The future of the benefice and also the deanery weighed heavily on me at any rate, and Ron, who's here, who's just stepped down as the area dean, was very involved in trying to cast a fresh vision for the deanery, which has to be said is probably one of the hardest jobs around, but it did weigh heavily on me throughout the year. And I guess many challenges remain, and more of that in a moment. But I guess the 2 things were the PCC reorganization. We had a wonderful facilitated PCC day back in May, and the guy who spoke to us said a church our size is in the classic situation of hitting a glass ceiling. And what that means is we just can't really get any bigger, because the structures, the management structures, are designed for a small or a medium-sized church, and they are not suitable for a large church. So countless churches have been through this situation before. So it's not rocket science, but it's a painful kind of transition to make, because what you have to do is you have to rearrange all your structures in advance of, let's say, going through the 300 mark, to create the capacity for managing a church that size. And so we had a PCC restructuring group was formed, and they have reported back. And I've said before, one of their key recommendations was the appointment of an operations director to oversee all the changes that are needed and to really get our operations running more smoothly. So that was one main challenge that still lies ahead. And then the other one, which Mike has covered, of course, is finance. But just to kind of finish that look back, I've thanked people already. I mean, I guess it's always dangerous reading out a list of people, because you're going to miss people out. But the one list I did want to read out, and I hope I haven't left anyone out, is the office volunteers who have been without Jan since, I think, September, is that right? November. So November, December, January, February, March. 5 months. Jan is making a steady recovery, which is fantastic. But this little office team of Anne Bursnell, Anne Exelby, Jean Froud, Karen Laurenti, Ray Mitchell, Shirley Marshall, Sophie Rudolph, Beverly Stockwell, and Jill Stops. Did I miss anyone? I don't think I did. Have done a phenomenal job. It has been business as usual in the office, and we don't see that, but some of them are in the office well into the afternoon, just catching up on all the jobs. So could we just give those people a round of applause? And then there's a staff team. You're all included in the staff team. Some of you are paid, some of you are unpaid. The PCC, the sides people, the cleaners, the musicians, the volunteers, drain cleaners, all the people, the Alpha team leaders. I just want to thank you all massively for all you do. And the next VVIP party is on Saturday, the 10th of June, here in church, 7 to 9 p.m. Get it in your diaries. But a look forward now, and I wanted to share with you how my thinking is developing as regards where I feel God is calling us as a church. And the first thing is our mission statement, which is we're a community that worships God, makes friends, and changes the world. And we've been struck that these three things perhaps need some kind of overarching, you could call it a strap line, or just a mission. And what we've come up with is simply that we should be a community of disciple-making disciples. Disciple-making disciples. And I think what I find attractive about that is I think one could be a church that is full of lovely, wonderful Christian followers of Jesus, i.e. disciples, but who don't quite get the need to pass the faith on. They don't quite understand the need to grow the kingdom of God. They don't quite understand the need that is done by this continuous process of making disciples. And so I just think being a community of disciple-making disciples is a short and snappy, it's a little bit of a tongue teaser, but it kind of, to me at any rate, it summarizes what we need to be about. So we need to be a community of disciple-making disciples by worshiping God, by making friends, and by changing the world. And so how do we become a church like that? And I think that would require several sermon series, but I guess one thing stands out to me. It's being a church that is good at inviting people, that's good at sharing their faith, that's, in a sense, has a faith that is contagious, that is infectious, that is easy to pass on. And how do we do this? Well, we do it through the Alpha course. And it's been very successful here. It's getting more and more successful. Numbers have been increasing. And we are also acting as a resource church for other churches. So, for example, Nash sent a whole group along to the Alpha course back in September. And as a result of that, those people in Nash have also started to invite people, certainly to my knowledge, one of whom, I sat next to him last Wednesday, has come on this Alpha course. So we are fulfilling that calling to be a resource church to help our faith become contagious. And it really needs to be in our DNA. It's so easy for Alpha to be a fringe activity, just one of the many activities that a church does. I really feel we need to be an Alpha church. It doesn't need any rebranding or anything like that. What it means, though, is that doing Alpha, helping on Alpha, being part of Alpha, supporting Alpha, in a sense, is part of our DNA. It runs through our blood. And what we're doing now is we are encouraging every welcome supper. I encourage every newcomer to the church to do Alpha. I don't care if they've been worshiping God for 50 years, if they've never done Alpha before, they don't understand about Alpha, then they should do it. They can help on the course, for example. I always learn something new on every Alpha course I do anyway. And I think by everyone in the church doing Alpha will mean that we'll get much better at running Alpha courses. And I hope and pray that it really will become part of our DNA. I've always said that serving our churches, our community, is crucial, being Christ's hands and feet in the community. And the centre has been really important to that. I'm delighted that Warren is here this evening. It was Warren's fateful telephone call one day to me to say, would the church be interested in taking on a peppercorn lease for the centre that set this whole ball rolling? And I really hope everybody has had a chance to get down to the centre and to see one of the many activities that are run from there. the vision for the centre was that things would be running so well that when the lease came to an end, it would be a really hard decision to lay that ministry down. And what we really pray is people outside the church would almost find it unimaginable that the town community could get by without all the services we provide down there. Now, we're doing well. We've got a way to go, but we are praying for an extension to the lease down there, and I hope you would join me in that prayer. But it's been very important, and it's, I guess, one of the things I'm most proud of that you guys have enabled. So on a personal note, I've been here 7 years, and I guess there is such thing as a 7-year itch. Oh, sorry, I don't know what that... No, that's the midlife crisis slide. Sorry, for those of you who don't know, that is my new motorbike. So 7-year itch. So where was I? Yeah, the bishop would like me to take a sabbatical next year, and I'd love to do that. I need to just get the PCC's permission to do that. But I do think I need a break to kind of freshen up my ideas. And Danny will have been priested by then. We've got a great team, so things will just carry on without me, I know. But talking of changing the world, as many here will know, I recently returned from a trip to India. I returned very excited. It's an incredible country. Apparently, it's the largest unreached nation on earth. 400 million plus people in India have yet to hear the name Jesus. And 50% of the world's poor live in that one single country. All I have time to share tonight is a sense that I feel God is calling me to some kind of ministry out there, not to move out to India, but certainly into some kind of mission partnership there. I'm really excited about it. Possibly to plant a church out there not literally sending someone from here to run a church out there, but to facilitate the planting of a church out there with either Angelina's father's old church in Pune, St. Mary's Church, or perhaps with a Mission India, which is a church planting organization. I've spoken to Bishop Allen about this, and he'd be delighted for me to go out there on an annual mission trip. So it's exciting. I can't wait to share a little bit more about that with you all. And it's actually a fairly straightforward place to get to. That was one of the attractions. Heathrow, Bombay, 9-hour overnight flight. You wake up, you're there. So that was quite an attraction about it. But what of 2017 and beyond? Well, the growth has continued. Now, I don't know if you can make this out, but last year I showed a similar graph, and the blue dots were the data we had, and the yellow extension was the projected growth. So that was the projected growth as at this time last year. The red line is now the projected growth based on last year's figures. So you can see our rate of growth has outstripped the projected growth, which is exciting, and that's what we've been hearing about from Emma in the children's work, although these are actually adult figures. So I just show you that, and it's going to dip at some stage, or it's going to flatline. I accept that, but this is the reality. Certainly the blue bit is the data so far. The red bit is where we would be if that rate of growth were to continue. So I don't think we've got any other option but to assume that God's blessing is upon us, and to assume that unless we mess up and fall into sin and to cease praying, that God's blessing should remain with us if we discern his will. Now, we have plenty of seating capacity. We have 250 or so of these comfortable chairs. The maximum normal service at the moment is 150, so that's not the issue. The issue is with capacity for children. Our operational capacity is way beyond breaking point at the moment. We've now become a complex organization. Just one little sort of vignette of the complexity is every week the staff team spends about half an hour running through every day deciding how the chairs need to be left. Because every day there's something different going on, and we need to make sure that one user doesn't put all the chairs away unnecessarily, or at least they put them away in a way that's helpful and advantageous to the next group. And it's just a picture of an increasingly complex jigsaw puzzle that's going on here. There are so many interconnected activities. We were trying to clear a welcome area at the back, and we thought it would be relatively straightforward until we then had to work out, well, actually, who is that going to affect? Which ministries actually use that area at the back? And that's why we've made a start. It's been months and months and we haven't actually completed it yet. Everything is complicated here. And what we need, I believe, is this kind of operational oversight role. We have hit this glass ceiling. And so the question that we've been asking is, how do we punch through it? And the recommendation of this subgroup is we appoint somebody to oversee the operations of the churches. They wanted, if money, had been available, to appoint a full-time operations director. As Mike has said, the money isn't available. So we're going to cut our cloth accordingly and try and appoint a part-time operations manager to work hand in glove with Jan. So Jan does more of the parish administration. Some of our volunteers in the parish office are into their 80s, and at some stage, I imagine they will probably want to step back from what they do, and therefore we may get extra volunteers to come in and cover. But I think Jan will increasingly spend more time being the parish administrator, and we need someone, in a sense, to take more of a strategic view at the operational efficiency of the church. So that was that, and we've talked about kids and the numbers, and so this is the other thing that we're really rooting for, but there is no money for at the moment, is a part-time children's worker. However, I am confident that if I did an appeal, particularly at the 9:30 service, for some extra giving to cover that post, I would be surprised if we didn't manage to raise that money. So you've heard me mention in the past the need for an associate minister, and some people quite rightly have said, Will, why all the emphasis on operations, and why is it now children's work? What's happened to the associate minister role that you were banging on about a year ago that was so important? It's a good question, and I think I need to answer it. I will at some stage definitely need somebody to share the leadership burden with of the church, somebody who has been ordained for quite a while, somebody who can run the church in my absence, and somebody to help me line manage the increasingly large staff team. We will definitely need an associate minister. But I am yet hopeful that the diocese will help us, perhaps with buying a house, and that we might then be able to come up with a half-time post to fulfill that role. But at the moment, I'm happy to soldier on. Danny is a marvelous curate and is taking relatively little time of mine in terms of supervision. I've got the wonderful Joe Ash as the pastoral care worker. So at the moment, I think we're okay. But in a couple of years' time, we're going to have to visit the associate minister issue. But by that stage, I hope the diocese will have got their thinking caps on and spurred themselves into action. One idea that I floated last year was for a new worship centre. And this thinking was prompted by trying to answer the question, how will you as the church react, reposition, whatever you want to call it, rebalance, in the light of all the significant growth in Buckingham Town? Now, I mean, that, if you're in the business of running a church, you need to be able to answer a question like that. And our growth is causing problems here. The parking issue, although it has to be said there's lots of parking down on the Tingewick Road, which is only a 4-5 minute walk, assuming you can walk relatively quickly. The drains can barely cope. I've told you about the lack of space for kids. The tension between the 9:30 and the 11 service, we're kind of managing that tension by finishing the 9:30 earlier than we would wish, and also telling people to leave church, to stop chatting, to stop hanging out with each other and get out of church in time to get their cars away so other people can come and park. It's not ideal, that. So, and also, how can we perhaps help partner with the town council to create perhaps a new kind of community centre with a much larger building? So our thinking is still evolving, but I still feel that whilst there are some measures we can take here, I've mentioned, parking away from church, we're looking into renting some rooms at the university. The whole idea of tweaking the morning service times is a perennial discussion. I'm just scared, because I know if I try and ask the 11 a.m. to meet at 11:15, World War III is going to break out. And if I ask the 9:30 to meet at 9:15, no one's going to come at 9:15 because they don't want to get out of bed a quarter of an hour earlier. But ultimately, I do feel some kind of new building would solve all these problems. There's 1,000 new houses going up down the Tingewick Road. And I am praying for some land. I'm praying for an opportunity somewhere, perhaps on an industrial estate which has the advantages of acres of car parking on a Sunday, a very simple warehouse-type building where all the noisy, messy activities, so the 9:30 and the 6 o'clock and the messy church service can decamp, kind of leaving this as it once was, which was an oasis of peace and calm, to do the traditional services, who knows, perhaps even reintroduce choral evensong, and obviously weddings and funerals. So that's kind of the idea, but we're not really far forward in that at all. We're kind of crawling towards the start line, feeling our way around at the moment. One thing that is interesting about that, though, is there may be scope for us to build our own church school. As you know, there is no church school in Buckingham. There's one at Maids Morton, but there's no church school in Buckingham. And it's quite a complex issue, this, and I'm way out of my depth. But I've been having long chats with Hans Tailing up at Maids Morton, and his church school is running out of space. And so there's a possibility that it might be more cost-effective to shut that down and to build a new school in our parish. Rather contentious. But I think it could have an amazing synergistic effect with putting a new school alongside a new worship centre. Because we could then use all the classrooms in the school on a Sunday, thereby cutting down the number of rooms we would have to build, and they could use our great big, auditorium for plays, all the rest of it. But anyway, it's talk about the devil being in the detail. I've had one meeting on it, and I left completely bamboozled. If you had to ask me where I thought we might be in 5 years' time, I think we might be a church of 3 campuses. Here, a new worship centre, and the centre down in Buckingham. That's where I'd love to be in 5 years' time. Those 3 different places fulfilling 3 discrete roles and working together as one body, as it were. But who knows? I want to finish with some verses from Ezekiel. The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. He led me to and fro among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. He asked me, Son of man, can these bones live? I said, Sovereign Lord, you alone know. Can I just rewrite that? The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of Buckingham. It was full of people who did not yet know Jesus. He led me to and fro among them, and I saw a great many hurting and confused people, people that knew nothing of the love and sacrifice of our Lord Jesus Christ. He asked me, "Son, can these people live new lives transformed by the Holy Spirit?" I said, "Sovereign Lord, you alone know." Only God knows where we're going to be in 5 years' time. But one thing I do know, we have the best news in the world, and we need to share it more and more effectively. Share it winsomely, honestly, effectively, and contagiously. And by the grace of God, and with your continued love, prayers, financial support, we can breathe new life into some old bones. Thank you. So, 9 p.m. So, the smell of samosas is wafting out. I would have no problem if a few of you wanted to go and grab a drink now and come back. It might save a rush later on, but don't all rush to do that now. But really, now is your time to grill me, and if I can't answer your question, there may be someone else, on anything else that you'd like to ask questions of. George is here with a roaming mic. Danny's here, so far away. Or, you know, it's wine and samosas now. Come on, guys. Somebody's got to be asking me a difficult, put me on the spot. Right, Mike.
Question. Why is it so difficult to get resources from the diocese and to get, resources from the bishop to support growth? If there's this constraint, then what is the constraint? Is it a financial constraint, or is it just bureaucracy?
I think it's because there are places like Milton Keynes that are a far higher priority for the diocese. And although we are, 1,000 houses is not an insignificant development. And of course, they come on the back of Lace Hill. So there's another 1,000 houses there. Relatively speaking, with Slough, Milton Keynes, some other places which are looking at develop some 4,000 and 5,000 house developments, we're kind of minnows. Right. I'm not sure what to make. Okay, thank you, Paul. George will be with you in a moment.
Will, I wonder if I might ask if the PCC would look at making a slight change to the 11 a.m. pattern of services. I know there used to be a service of the word on a first Sunday, and some months ago that was changed so we're all communion. I wonder if it would be possible to, for an experimental period perhaps, to go back to having a service of the word for the first Sunday of the month. I mean, there are lots of advantages. One would be it wouldn't involve clergy, so you could have a day off, especially as you have a sabbatical coming up. It would also give more flexibility, because the communion service, much as I love it, is prescribed. It's pretty standard, pretty well every week. And a change once a month for perhaps quite a different service might be a good thing, I think, just to give a bit of variety.
I think we could certainly look into that. I mean, there is a number of people who would only go to a service if they can receive Holy Communion at that. The downside would be they may not worship here, but the upside is they, of course, have the rest of the benefits to bless with their attendance. And actually, I'm all for trying to spread the blessings out to the villages. I know Nash is doing really well at the moment. Several people who've stopped worshipping here are now worshipping at Nash, and I'm delighted about that, as long as they haven't given up on church completely. I guess I'd want to ask the 11 a.m. what they'd think about that. I'd be all for it. I mean, I do feel we should try different things and shape the changes. And I know before I arrived, they had a very creative first Sunday of the month, I think. I think somebody will correct me if I remember, Mike, you were part of it. Didn't they drink beer in a It has been known they did a little skit or something to involve drinking something that, cold tea, of course. Mr. Grenier and Mr. Miss Campbell, yeah. So, I mean, I've always been encouraging of Ray and Tina to do something more creative musically on the first Sunday. I've even offered to play my flute on the first Sunday. And when Danny gets priested, it's coming out. No, he doesn't. No. He plays football very well. Tina.
I just wanted to ask a little bit about youth or children's ministry at the 11 a.m. We have got quite a lot of people, young people in the choir, and it's lovely to see them going off. And it's also really nice and encouraging to see Emily taking youngsters who are visiting with their parents. And we are starting to get a few families who have got young children with them who prefer a traditional worship. So I'm just hoping that Emily's great plans for children's ministry and youth ministry will also include the 11 o'clock service.
Yes, so currently we have jammers at the 11 a.m. and it's grown by 3 people, I think, over the last year. It's a lovely group now. We did have a bit of a challenge last year because we had 2, I think they were like 2-year-olds join, and then the rest of the group were between like 7 and 11. And to cope with them all in one room is quite difficult because they have such different needs. So I think we are good at the moment at catering for those who are kind of in primary school, but our struggle is that new families are joining with toddlers, and we just don't have the people to support it. I think, one of our challenges for the 11 a.m. is lots of volunteers are happy to support kids work at the 9:30, but they're not necessarily able to support at the 11 a.m. So again, if anybody would like to join teams there, we could maybe look at growing and seeing what else we can put on for them. But it's definitely part of the vision and part of the plan, and it's exciting.
Thank you. Any more? Ria.
I have a few things I would like to say, but I don't want you to take in the wrong way. I feel church is
Ria, could I just
really
say,
good.
could you ask a question, please?
Okay, okay. Isn't that can I express a concern? Is it a question time? Okay, I thought, is there like something we could raise? Is that not yet?
What we don't want is a sort of 5-minute presentation on everything you think that's...
I have a personal, also, I know people talk about church, but don't always come in the open. So I feel a bit of a devil's advocate here. But I have a serious concern about health and safety in the church. We are growing church, which is great, but I feel health and safety has been slightly neglected. For example, there's a fire exit sign on that back double door, but often the actual exit is locked, which is illegal as far as I knew.
Okay, I think these are quite kind of nitty-gritty little things. I think you need to email me what your concerns are. We have a new health and safety officer here, Nigel Collison, which is fantastic, and I think that would be something for the ministry leader to deal with. I don't really think it's for this meeting.
Okay, but I think that's very important. If there's a fire and fire exit locked.
Okay, your point is noted, and I think we'll move on. So, any other, Paul?
Are we at last going to fulfil the Elkington bequest?
Oh, yes. Okay, the Elkington bequest, which I think originally was about 50 quid, it's now grown to £2,500, can only be spent on engraving the doors. Okay, glass engravings on the glass doors. Judith, I'm sure you won't mind me saying, this defeated even you. And Judith handed over a file to me about that thick, and I looked through it, and I thought, I'll have this sorted out, and I haven't. Because we did send the DAC some suggested designs which the PCC approved. The designs by Phil Lawson-Johnson, who has a royal warrant. He's by appointment to the HM Queen, a glass engraver, but the DAC didn't like it. They liked the New Testament bit of scripture, but they didn't like the Old Testament bit of scripture. I found it utterly unbelievable, and I just couldn't cope with it anymore. So it's in the pending tray at the moment, but now because Paul has raised it, I guess we'll have to look at it. Did Judith?
Just wanted to say that actually the bequest was for stained glass window, which we didn't want and the DAC didn't want, because we wanted to keep the light open windows at the top. But they did accept the idea when we did the open door of doing the glass doors. But as you say, we haven't come to agreement.
Fantastic. There we go. Any more for any more? Vol au vents, samosas await. Thank you all very, very much indeed.